Is the term built different real, or is it just an excuse for people who'd never tried?
I think the term built different is real. For me, when most people look at athletes, they're just looking at the talent. Yes, you need talent, but built different means, a mental state, a state of discipline, state of focus, the state of mind to do something, multiple times a day, every day, for years and years and years on end. So you got to be built different for that.
Yeah, I know people obviously talk about talent a lot, but from someone like me who's been kind of like studying athletes in the sports psychology for a while, the main skill that athletes have over normal people is extreme mental toughness. And like you said, doing the same thing every day over and over again. Because there's so many people, there even is probably athletes as well that just don't really have it, but they need to start developing it. How does someone begin to develop that?
It comes from a reward. And I usually see this in the athletes that they're close, but they don't have it. So they want it so bad. So you have to have a need, a passion. You have to taste some sort of success, but the ultimate success is there. And they realize that, you know what, if I'm going to get this ultimate success, for example, Olympic medal, gold medal, big contract, world champion, break it down, they say they have to sacrifice. And this is how much they have to sacrifice. And some. And that's usually what I've seen. And usually those are the athletes that are normally not the most talented at the beginning, but they've worked themselves into such a great talent. And that's what a lot of people don't see. They only see the end product, or when they're competing. And a lot of times these athletes, they've never heard of them. There's only rare athletes who are like phenoms when they're children, have a long career of being a great athlete. A lot of those early athletes fade out because they're so gifted. And because they're so gifted, they usually don't have to work hard. And I have a saying, if talent don't work, talent don't work. Eventually, with all the talent you got, if you don't work, it's going to catch up to you, right? The gap is closing year to year, year to year. And another problem I see with a lot of kids that are talented or too early is that, they're the parents, people they're surrounded with, they don't want to push them. They're always patting them on the back. They're always praising the event or what they did instead of praising the work. And I think that's a huge mistake. I call that athletes get champions disease. Oh, you won this gold medal, or you won this, you won that. Praise the athlete's work, especially when they're young, because you want to get them in the mindset of, it's my work that got me to this position.
Will you raise an elite athlete? So would you say that the athlete is reminded of the grind at all time, but they just tolerate the bumps in the road the whole time?
They understand that this grind is getting me here. I'm striving for this, and a lot of times these grinds are not, social media grinds, or you don't see them grind. The real serious athletes, you don't see them, talking about grinding here and grinding there, probably, on social media all the time. Or you say probably, some do, but a lot of athletes I know, they're putting that work quietly when no one's watching.
How, out of interest, did you remind your daughter of that end goal? Because like you said, that there's a lot of those times in that grind they're dark days, they're tough, they don't look like anyone's going to go, your body's beat up, but you have to how did you end up reminding her at that point of what the end goal is?
I didn't have to remind her. She wanted it. That was her end goal. Like, she wanted it bad. It didn't start out like that, but she hates training, right? For someone who's trained 16 sessions a week, she hated training, but she loved winning. She loved traveling. She loved so all that pain and sacrifice were for her to win, and she got robbed for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. She was the strongest athlete for her weight class. Because of COVID, took out the two most important competitions, and the Roby points, whatever, they took out those. So that's how she got. So that, reset a fire for her, but that's her dream. Her dream is to go to Olympics. And if you have such a powerful dream, and she did everything in her power to achieve that dream. So I just had to direct her. She had the fire. I never missed a training session unless she was sick. And if she was dinged up or injured, she would always come in. So, I'm proud of that. My daughter's work ethic is phenomenal. And I'm a proud daddy for that. Like,
Yeah.
When the Commonwealth she won the Commonwealth Championships. I mean, sorry, Commonwealth Games, 2020, I think, or 23. Can't remember the exact year, but whenever the Commonwealth Games was, it was in Birmingham, England, and she won a gold medal and broke 2 Commonwealth Games records. And the next day, she was in the training hall working. Like the next day after winning that, she didn't take a day off. She was on to the next, and that made me proud. Obviously, I instilled those habits in her from early, that the work ethic, what it takes. But when other athletes were, going shopping or going to see the town, don't get me wrong, she enjoyed the win, but she was on to the next. And those are the things that it takes. And a lot of people say my daughter's gifted. No, she's not gifted or talented. You know what? She's talented in hard work, pain, suffering, and just keep going, can't stop, won't stop mentality, attitude, dealing with the ups and downs, dealing with, you know, adversity. So adversity make her stronger. Instead of running from adversity, she attacks adversity, and it gives her more, and she pushes forward. And as a dad, um, that was powerful. And I'll tell you, and we're talking about focus. So, and I actually learned this from her, because as she's building her career, she's, making a name for herself. And I say, social media, you got to start building your brand and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I noticed she wasn't really trying to build her brand on social. So this was probably 8 years ago or something like that. And she was a junior, she was making waves. And she goes, Daddy, it's a distraction for me. It's distracting me from social media. I just want to focus. I learned something from that. I learned how powerful focus was. And I never forgot that. And I had to look at myself and start to apply that. So about 10 years ago, she told me that. And I learned something from my baby, and how powerful. That's her power. My daughter is extremely focused. And I learned that from her, which was a beautiful thing.
Focus is a big one, because people like these fancy terms on social media and stuff about locked in and all that shit. It's usually all just bullshit. But I had this thought a few weeks ago, because I listened to Michael Phelps talk about how for 2.5 years he never missed a day in the water. And funny enough, when you talk about building your brand, he had hired people to do all his social media work, but they had to come every day to the pool and watch him, because he liked the idea of somebody watching him train every single day. And I thought about it, because these athletes are 100% focused. There's not even 0.1% out of focus. And I wanted to ask you this, because you've seen it from both sides. You have fairly normal people as clients and things like that. Does a normal person actually know what it's like to be 100% focused on something, or do we just give it 50% and hope for the best?
They give it 50% and hope for the best, because they don't understand. We're stuck in our society where everything is about balance, or everything is about, to be extremely good at something, there's no such thing as balance, right? And I've learned that. And a lot of times people don't understand what real intensity or working hard at is, for, these, uh, for what your sport, and for so on and so forth, even for, simple, everyday people who just want to get, fitter and healthier and lose some weight. It takes hard work. You hear this, oh, I'm going to go for a walk every day, or I'm going to ride my bike, or I'm going to go on treadmill for 10 minutes and all that bullshit. You know what I mean? You got to work hard, man. I have some of the strongest older ladies and older men, because they understand, and they understand why I push them so hard. Obviously you got to you have to build them up for that. And you have to understand, no, they're not athletes. They're athletes for life, or the boardroom. Some executives that I train, own companies and so on and so forth. When they walk in a boardroom, they command attention, and everybody's looking at how good they look and how focused they are and in shape. But that's hard work in the gym, lifting some heavy ass weight frequently, and lifting heavy weight as fast as possible with good technique, but that's a process you build on. So that stuff makes me proud and happy. So, and that's sacrifice, right? Everything is sacrifice. People don't want to sacrifice shit. They just want to get shit without the sacrifice. How does that fucking make sense? You want to drop 10 pounds, but you don't want to stop having your dessert or your cake after, or your ice cream, or your thing. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I can get into a whole thing about the chemicals they put in their food or stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirror and see, how much is this worth for you? How bad do you want it? And you got to sacrifice for it. It's just that simple.
I like the sacrifice one because I read a really, really good blog about sacrifice a few days ago where guy was talking, it was almost like a conversation with himself. I'm almost certain he was one of the like behind closed door founder of Forbes. And he was talking about how normal people think they know what sacrificing everything means, but they actually have no idea. And it was proven when Mark Wahlberg put out his daily routine, and it was the most boring looking routine you've ever seen. Now, if someone looked at it, they would almost think that it's the routine of like a retirement home resident or something. But
I gotta go check. I gotta go check that out. I've never seen that. Yeah.
but the guy in the blog wrote underneath that that is the exact example of sacrifice. His routine was wakes up, works out, goes back to sleep, prays, works out again, goes to actual work, acting, then comes home, studies actors, watches movies, and takes notes. And it was pretty much that for about 12 to 14 hours a day. And people were losing their minds. Like, this is so boring. That's no life for a millionaire to live. But he wrote on the blog that is the exact definition of sacrifice. Do you think these type of things people are overlooking?
Exactly. Exactly. There's nothing more I can say. That's sacrifice. And you have to surround yourself with loved ones that can understand that sacrifice and appreciate that sacrifice. You got to be that's the definition is locked in, deep work. That seems like just, that extreme focus with intensity at a giving task over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's what it takes. Period. Sacrifice is lonely. There's no way to say it. It just is.
Yeah, I think Mark Wahlberg had said on like an Instagram story a lot, and after it was like, I'm well aware this is boring. It's meant to be, but this is something then we'll piggyback off your what's annoying you this week about the balance and stuff. I know people love that 80-20 thing and stuff. How can you convince a normal person to actually work at their craft 7 days a week? Because people take weekends off.
It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. And one of my for instance, what I did with my daughter is, if she didn't get a massage, she'd have to train on Sunday, right? So usually I'd give most athletes Sunday off. Until you're a certain level, you need to train every day, right? But if she didn't get a massage on Saturday, she'd have to train on Sunday, right? And I'm not saying some people may need a mental break, one day off, right, on a Saturday, but that's one day of some type of different activity. It may not be in the gym per se, but some type of, go for a walk, go for a swim, right? But they don't have to see the gym. They don't have to do that activity. But mostly I believe athletes have to move every day, and it's very important to keep active every day, and it's like a recovery day that is active. So that means there's no days off, but a day out in a different environment. And that's the way I sidestep it mentally.
I want to stay on this because you talked a lot about focus with intent, and I like this idea that because there's a question I have in mind that I'm trying to slip on, but I'm struggling to find the exact point, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. Because you said in the beginning that the thing that drives an athlete is they know exactly where they want to go and they know what they have to do and they just go for it. But, a normal person, an average person, some of your clients maybe, or maybe just people that aren't even involved in sport in any way, they get to a point and they almost self-sabotage. And to me, as an outsider, it looks almost like they kind of fear that level of success. Do you think that maybe the normal person is afraid to get all the success, all their hopes and dreams, where an athlete is like, that is literally where I want to go?
So you're saying, so I can understand the question clearly, that you're saying for a normal person, they are afraid of success, or they sabotage their success?
It's just how it looks, because the normal person sets their mind to something, but when it gets to a certain point, maybe when it gets difficult or when it gets intense or there's pressure, they almost just blow up by themselves, and that's where you can see athletes really excel. I mean, you look at some of like finals of competitions and stuff, there's some athletes that just they can, like, this is my time to shine now, let's have it.
Over my years, I've seen different levels of like athletes choking or freezing up, or because there's high levels that you probably most people have never seen, and a lot of people don't even realize that this athlete is, I would say, freezing up or choking somehow. You know what I mean? So, when the everyday person, individual, a lot of times they just don't understand how hard the work is. We have a saying in our gym: everybody wants to be a monster until they see what real monsters do. So you want this, but this is what you got to do. When you realize this is what you got to do, they're out the door. So, and that's it. Everybody wants to be a monster until they see what real monsters do. When you really see what they have to do, the grind they have to do, the sacrifices they have to take, a lot of people say, man, this ain't for me. And that's okay, right? Now, the difference is some they go for, they attack it, they want it, and they have battles, mental battles or doubt or confidence and things like that. And I'm a type of person, I love when I see the athletes that are working hard or sacrificing. They might have some confidence issues. I pour that into them. I let them know, you're the man or you're the woman, you can do it. I speak to that. I said, don't let anybody tell you can't do this. Tell yourself you can do it. So there's different levels, and then as a coach, you got to know who you're working with and how they respond. Some athletes, I can challenge them and come at them and, be really, I'm never mean, but, they have to fight tooth and nail for everything, like a reward from me, for example, like a pat on the back. Why? Because I know they got more in them. And then some athletes, you got to pat them on the, you got to pat them on the back, praise them a little bit more, or so on, because they're not as, I would say, mentally strong or whatever. But one thing for me, I love when I see that change is like that cocoon, that butterfly comes out. It's not even about physical attributes. It's just that confidence, that drive, that determination. And you say, yo, this person came in here a non-confident person and they just came out confident. Like they want that ball in the final seconds of the game. I'm the man that you gotta, or I'm that you gotta beat me when they show up to a competition. You could just see it in their like it's just, I don't know. I just love it. It gives me, I love to see that change. It's as a coach, that's kind of one of my most rewarding things, is like to help somebody to get to that level of confidence.
Friend of mine on Twitter has this great quote of habits formed in downtime outshine good habits found in work. And something that whenever I read it again before this episode, I've thought of how I could phrase it to you, because you mentioned about if your daughter wasn't training, she was getting a massage. So she was doing something in her downtime that was still beneficial to her sport. What is it athletes do in their downtime to stop them forming bad habits?
That's a good question. I never really paid attention to that, but I know video games are popular, so I'm not a big fan of video
So
games.
popular.
My son plays video games or whatever, and I think video games are horrible. It's a bad habit. But people argue, hey, they're playing the games, they're getting, their mental training and so on and so forth. So I can see that. I get that. I think it's a little bit too much and a little bit excessive, but I'm a little old school. But you just always want to foster good habits, good character. And at the end of the day, they have to get their sleep, they have to recover, they have to eat right. So those are a lot of good things that they're forming in downtime. And I believe people have to have their downtime, and that's their business. Whatever they do, they got to have that time just for themselves, and whatever they want to do at that time, that they want to do that time. But out of the gym, they have to prepare themselves to get into the gym and for their sport. So usually they should be surrounded or doing a lot of good activities, which usually doesn't leave a lot of downtime.
So many excuses people have for why they can't have this mindset and the things you're talking about. So I wanted to ask you, what is the biggest lie people are telling themselves that are stopping them from getting this mindset you're talking about?
I don't have the time.
I knew it was coming.
I don't have the time, man. That's the biggest lie they tell. I don't have the time. And if there's a saying, if you think you can't, you won't. And if you think you won't, you won't. I can't remember who that quote is from. I'm probably screwing up the quote, but hey, it all starts from the mind, man. And if you and people, you have to understand, people make time for what is important for them and to them. You know, I think that's the biggest bullshit is that when people say they don't have the time. So you have to make the time. You have to sacrifice. Get up early, go to bed early, or get rid of whatever you're doing. There's always time. Just for the general public, someone wants to lose weight, you tell me you can't find 6 minutes a day to do exercise every day. That compounds. If you add up 6 minutes a day to do some type of circuit, 6 minutes, I'm talking 6 minutes of exercise, right? You can't do that. And if you do that every day, you do that for a while, months and months and months in a year, you're going to achieve results. When you say you don't have the time to take care of yourself, that's total crap to me.
Right, Clance. Tell people where can they find you, what have you got out, and what's coming in the future.
Where they can find me is LPS Athletic .com. We have a YouTube channel, LPS Athletic. My partner usually takes care of all this stuff. I don't even know. We're on Instagram. That's it. So what's coming is we're just producing athletes. We're just doing our work. Nothing really is coming out, or we don't have any hot products. Our biggest thing is just to work with athletes, and we love being part of the journey for athletes, and that's it. That's pretty simple.
Do you want to plug your book?
I forgot. Yeah, we have a book, #1 bestseller on Amazon. It's called Dominate. Thank you, buddy. See, I appreciate that. Yeah, my partner would have got mad at me about that, but it's a very simple, easy read book. Believe it or not, a lot of non-athletes really enjoy it. They have a good takeaway for their life and apply it. So I'm very proud of that book.